Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I'm a voice teacher. Today I will be continuing my series of amateur and professional singers singing the same song, and at the end I will give a bunch of vocal exercises to help you work on this song. So today we will be looking at Ed Sheeran and Steve singing Perfect.
Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet. Well, I never knew you were the someone waiting for me. 'Cause we were just kids when we fell in love, not knowing what it was. I will not give you up this time.
So he uses a lot of this kind of squeaky place. I wouldn't call it necessarily nasal, but there might be a little bit of nasality in that sound. Give you up. It just has a lot of squeak to it. There's a lot of buzz from his vocal folds and a really tight vowel configuration. So he's not really dropping his jaw for anything. He's also not going high enough that he really has to. And I think that's part of his style, is that kind of compressed sound. In terms of the performance aspect, I just wish he'd open his eyes. Like, I'm not really able to get that into what he's performing because he's not showing anything on his face. He sounds really good. I think he's a really good live performer, but you can just, if your eyes are closed the whole time, like, you're not going to be telling the story in nearly as strong of a way as if you were using your eyes, if that is a tool that is available to you.
Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet. Oh, I never knew you were the someone waiting for me. 'Cause we were just kids when we fell in love, not knowing why it was. I will not give you up this time.
Good. So I think that Steve is more interesting to watch. Preface, Steve is very hard of hearing, and he still is making significant progress and practicing singing really often. So whatever you're going through that makes you think that you can't get better at singing, you can. Like, you can if it's something that you love. The progress that I've seen Steve make since I first saw Steve sing almost 2 years ago now. Nice. It's been noticeable. I think it's really noticeable. So a lot of the pitches are right on. Sometimes the pitch is wandering a little bit. My favorite tool for tuning in that is a hum. When you're humming, your lips are vibrating together, which is a lot of nerve endings that are kind of firing. And you're able to feel what that sound feels like, what the pitch feels like, in a way that is a lot more difficult if you're just using a vowel. So I would just try humming through this thing. And for someone who is hard of hearing, it might be beneficial to pull out a visual tuner, something that'll tell you if you're like on the middle of the pitch or if you're tending to go a little bit up or a little bit down. And if you're using the hum to find what that pitch is supposed to feel like, then you will be able to be like, okay, I'm working on just one note at a time, making sure that this is all really good. Cool, it's right on that E flat. For example, this goes into that E flat quite a bit. We'll start with that. That's the ultimate goal, is to be able to just hum and have it stay on pitch. So pull out that tuner, just find the first E flat, make sure that it is perfect, and then open it up to the word after you get in that place, because then you'll know what it's supposed to feel like really, really well. Because if you don't have as strong of hearing, then that's the main thing that we're relying on, is the feeling of everything. So go like, and then you open it to the word while making sure that it says on the digital tuner that it's the exact same note. So I would just do that for every single note, because most of what's going on is actually working pretty well. I think that just as it gets faster, that's where he's losing a little bit more of the pitch. In terms of that kind of buzzy sound that we were getting with Ed, there are some times that Steve gets that sort of sound, which I think is actually easier to match pitch with. So that's one thing that I'll give some exercises later to try to get a little bit more of that buzzy feeling. And use some of that hum, because the M going into other sounds is really so beneficial for tuning things up. For people who think that they're tone deaf, I can usually get them matching pitch within like 3 minutes if we start using a hum.
Dancing in the dark with you
nice and narrow vowel. Yeah, when he went to the barefoot on bare, he didn't go bare and open it really wide. It was a very pointed vowel shape. And that's up to the G. So he's doing it a half step lower than what Steve chose to do. So let's see how Steve does it.
Dancing in the dark with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass.
Okay, so Steve changed the pitch, which is, I think, fine if you're doing covers. Everything doesn't need to be exactly the same as what the original artist did. And if you're uncomfortable going up to some of those notes, then like it's totally fine to change it if you still love the song enough that that's what you want to perform. If we were trying to go up for that note, then we would use that same sort of sound, let it start rolling up into his head as he was able to do in that earlier clip. So we just need to kind of extend what he was doing a little bit higher and then start giving him confidence by doing these exercises so that he knows exactly what it's supposed to feel like for him to be on pitch on those sections.
Listening to our favorite song when I saw you in
Love that so.
looking so beautiful. I don't deserve this, darling. You look perfect tonight.
Nice. Yeah, the you going into that kind of place I thought is really, really nice. A lot of vocal problems happen from kind of over opening as we ascend. And while he doesn't start opening his mouth until probably that G, really, when people are first learning how to sing, I think that it's better to start working on that opening a little bit earlier. Maybe closer to the C, C sharp, D is where we want to start letting that jaw drop. For someone who's as experienced as Ed Sheeran is and who knows his voice as well as he does, you can get away with a lot of these little things breaking the rules. It sounds more compressed because he's not opening it as much as maybe a opera singer would, but that's one of the things that gives it this characteristic style of pop music.
Listening to our favorite song when I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful. I deserve it, darling. You look perfect tonight.
Nice. Yeah, Steve's a good performer. I really like that aspect of it. Like he's engaged. He knows what he's singing about. He knows who he's singing to. If he's just faking that, then maybe just make sure that you know exactly who you are singing to, what you're singing this about. But like, it's hard to fake things like that. I think that he knows why he's singing these words and that's why his face is doing the things that he's doing. That's why his eyes are doing the things that they're doing. And it's really difficult to fake that. So to find that squeakier kind of sound that Ed was able to get that I think we need a little bit more for Steve, I want to try with a 3-note pattern and just do it on a me, and make it kind of aggressively loud. So if we go me, and think about all of those vibrating in your nose, that's a really strong feeling that you can kind of latch onto. So let's try that again. Me, and keep going up. And as you're doing this, pay attention to what changes in sensation you feel as you go through different notes. Maybe for some lower notes, you feel it in one place. As you go higher, you might feel it in a different place. Most people tend to feel lower notes a little bit more in their chest. However, using this really strong M, there's always going to be some feeling in the face. Maybe there's not for you though, and that's okay too. Honestly, it's just all of these, hey, you'll probably feel it like this is just a probably. Me, kind of aggressively gross sounding. Me. Notice on that last one, I dropped my jaw a little bit more on the top note. It's above the bridge for a lot of guys. And if you don't start dropping it, it starts feeling just tense and weird and bad. That's kind of closer to what I was hearing Ed Sheeran do, was just not opening it as much. So listen to the difference between these two. This is if I don't open it as much. Me. Just starts sounding a little bit closed off. Me. Both of them I feel a really strong vibration. It's just like really strong sensation, and that's mostly because of the M, and also the E kind of encourages a little bit more head voice, but also more like front feeling for a lot of people because the tongue is so front for most people. But just dropping the jaw, it suddenly feels so much better. So that's the main thing that I would do with this, is just play around with that really strong me, not on a very complicated pattern. We just need to do it on 3 notes. Just so that we can start feeling, oh, the sensation moves up and down. I know what each of these pitches feel like. And then once we get used to that, then it's just doing it on the actual pitches in the song. So the barefoot on the, try that on the me, me, me. Me, 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 me. After you did all of those exercises, you'll probably know what you need to do with your mouth in order to make it work on those high notes. And then just, if you have one of those tuners, like they're so useful, and everyone has these really brilliant smartphones, and there are these apps that, you know, it'll tell you what note you're singing, or maybe there's a drone that is playing one note. So it's like, okay, I know that I'm working on these notes. Barefoot on the grass, I think the words are. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different notes. So we first start by just having it drone on the G, and then go me until it locks in. If it says it's below, like from doing those exercises, you already know what it feels like to move up and down. So just kind of scoop up until you tune into that right note. And we can use all of these senses and all of these tools to start tuning into this thing, and then get really comfortable with what that me feels like on the G, and then do the same thing on the F sharp, and then do the same thing on the E, and then the same thing on the D, and the same thing on the B. And it gets really tedious to do each of these things, but if you're meticulous enough when you're tuning each of these notes, then you know, okay, this is kind of what each of these notes feels like independently, and then you can start tuning them together, making sure that you know how it feels to move between all of those so that it's perfectly in tune, and it's got that same sort of intense quality that you get from the me, 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 because that's going to give you that strong sound that that Ed was able to get. So that's kind of how I would approach this song. I would love for Ed to just open his eyes, oh my gosh, because his voice is so great. He's doing so many things well, but it feels like it's not engaging for me personally to watch him. And I think a big part of it is because like he's imagining everything in his head rather than outside, and because of that it's hard for me to be a part of it. And I know people are going to disagree with that. I think that closing your eyes can work for like temporary amounts of time, but if you're doing a whole song like that and it is a tool that you have available to you, like you're just throwing out that tool. It's like the Utah Jazz, this basketball team, they used to be coached by Jerry Sloan, and he used to tell people like they're playing in tuxedos because they're not using their arms all the time. And it's like, yeah, we have this tool. Use that freaking tool so that you can be as effective as you can. Same thing is true with performance. Like, people communicate so much with your eyes. If you're not willing to use those, it's cutting off so much that is available to you. So that's how I would suggest him to take it even to another level. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me think what you think about the eyes and how you use eyes for performances. Are they as useful as I claim? Are eyes valuable? Scientists are in heated discussions about if eyes are useful. So let me know what you think.